Hello, Morongo Basin and listeners around the world online at Z107.7 FM.com. Here is the Z107.7 Local News for Thursday, July 11th, 2024. A convicted felon was arrested in 29 Palms for suspicion of child abuse and battery. On Saturday at around 11:30 p.m., County Sheriff's deputies contacted Alfred Romero Jr. in the 6000 block of Alpine Avenue in 29 Palms. Romero, who has been convicted of violent crime in the past, was taken into custody by deputies. The Sheriff's Department declined to provide information about the nature of the abuse or the status of the victims. Alfred Romero Jr. was arrested on suspicion of child abuse with possibility of great bodily injury or death and battery with serious bodily injury. He was booked into the West Valley Detention Center on $115,000 bail and is facing 4 felony charges related to the abuse, along with 8 enhancements for prior violent felony convictions. A fire at a suspected drug lab in Landers led to 1 arrest for suspicion of resisting arrest and an investigation into possible arson by the county. At around 4:45 p.m. on Tuesday, San Bernardino County fire crews responded to a report of a fire in a detached garage in the 57,000 block of Rishi Road. Fire crews said that the occupants of the house were physically fighting and contacted the county sheriff's department. Sheriff's deputies reported additional danger due to the possibility of butane exploding as part of what they described as a honey oil lab. Honey oil is an extract created by processing cannabis. Deputies say that as they attempted to clear the house, they were informed by an occupant that one man, identified as Roberto Gonzalez, was hiding in a bedroom. Deputies say that when he was discovered, Gonzalez ran toward them and resisted commands. Fire crews were able to knock down the fire within 15 minutes of their arrival. CAL FIRE was involved in the control of brush on the property that had also caught fire. Roberto Gonzalez was arrested for investigation into resisting arrest. County Fire says they are currently investigating the cause of the fire. A fire at an apartment complex in 29 Palms sent 3 people to the hospital. Online news editor Robert Hayden has more.
At 8 a.m. on Tuesday morning, San Bernardino County Fire and County Sheriff's deputies responded to a report of a fire at an apartment complex in the area of Sunrise Road and Maud Adams Avenue in 29 Palms. A medical engine arrived to find heavy fire and smoke coming from one of the units, and a downed power line hazard was immediately noted. The Marine Base Fire Department was also on scene to assist with fire suppression efforts. Sheriff's deputies say that one person was breaking windows in one of the units in an attempt to rescue dogs that were trapped in the burning building. Fire crews report that the blaze was knocked down in under 20 minutes. A total of 3 units in the apartment complex were damaged along with a nearby vehicle. The incident is being investigated and the cause has yet to be determined. 2 people were transported by Morongo Basin Ambulance to High Desert Medical Center for treatments for burns and smoke inhalation. An additional person reportedly drove themselves to the hospital, and a 4th person at the scene declined medical treatment. Reporting for Z107.7 News, I'm Robert Hayden.
Just before 5 a.m. this morning, engines from County Fire responded to a structure fire in the 62,000 block of Valle Vista in 29 Palms. Crews arrived to find a house and 2 vehicles on fire, and County Fire was joined by units from the Marine Corps Air Ground Combat Center. The fire was knocked down and crews were able to limit damage to the home. There were no injuries reported. The cause of the fire has yet to be determined. Local author Susan Rukeyser will be celebrating the release of her new novel, The Worst Kind of Girl, tomorrow night at High Desert Times Magazines in 29 Palms. Presented by Red Light Lit, Rukeyser will read from her new novel, which takes place here in the Morongo Basin, followed by live music by Mary Simic and vegetarian appetizers by Epicurean Fling. Reporter Gabriel Hart sat down with Rukeyser to discuss the novel's journey and its very local features.
When the uncertainty of the pandemic rendered many of us speechless, there was a moment when author Susan Rukeyser felt she too may had run out of words.
You know, it was the middle of COVID. I'm completely frozen with a sort of existential dread where I almost felt like I will never write again. I have no words. And then suddenly this novel starts coming out of me, and of course it became like an escape to go into this fictional world, somewhat idealized,
What eventually followed 4 years later was her new novel, The Worst Kind of Girl, an eccentric novel with an ensemble of high desert characters centered around Paula Winger, a 50-year-old widow from Connecticut who is the new proprietor of a rundown Joshua Tree motel. Aligned with the novel's fluid prose, Paula begins to question her sexuality when she encounters Sky, a local baker. But before you assume this is some quirky queer soap opera, the novel is unnerved by a noir undercurrent with dead bodies turning up in the desert, and we learn Paula's own husband has long disappeared and presumed dead on the East Coast. Yet Paula seems unfazed, more concerned with the changes going on in her own living, breathing self, which is what constructs the heart of the novel, certain shifts Rukeyser experienced firsthand when she moved here.
Well, I wanted to have fun with it, because as soon as I decided, okay, I'm going to have her come out at 50 like I did, I was like, well, then obviously people are going to think it's me. So I'll play with that. I'll make her tall, I'll give her gray hair, I'll make her from Connecticut, and I'll play with that, and I'll sort of turn all of those elements up a little bit. But it is very clear in my mind. I kind of gave her that situation, and I gave her my questions about all of that, but she is not the same person as I am, and she's a little less aware of what's going on than I was. And I don't, I'm at a point where I do know that is the very first question people ask about novels or any other kind of writings. They always assume it's about you, and I don't care.
Despite its very lived-in elements, Rukeyser insists it's fiction and not to be confused with her own story. She doesn't run a motel, for example. But when asked what inspired Paula's High Des Motel, a mashup of local spots including the old Travelodge sign that adorns the front cover, Rukeyser said,
"Just a motel seems like a good place to catch people when they are coming and going, which is a big theme in this book,
Yeah.
Of course, is disappearing and arriving and all that."
Other local spots featured in the novel include Joshua Tree National Park, the Joshua Tree Dry Lake Bed, sprinkled with other fictitious recreational centers like the Rainbow Roll, a queer roller disco Rukeyser sees as her attempt at a specific wish fulfillment. Reporting for Z107.7, this is Gabriel Hart.
Thanks, Gabe. Rukeyser will be signing copies of her book at tomorrow's book launch event at High Desert Times, located inside of Corner 62 in 29 Palms, 73552 29 Palms Highway. The event runs from 6 p.m. to 9 p.m. tomorrow. The California Department of Fish and Wildlife holds its virtual meeting today from 2 to 4 p.m., during which they will have an update on the Western Joshua Tree Conservation Plan strategies introduced at the April outreach meeting, and they will gather feedback from the public. To participate remotely during the meeting, you must pre-register by following a link in this story at Z107.7fm.com. And finally, if the sizzling sun has you seeking shade when soaking in the sights and sounds of summer's seasonal splendor, you aren't alone. Online news editor Robert Hayden joins us with a reminder to check for torts under your tires.
The Mojave Desert tortoise can be a rare sight to see out in the open desert, and as summer hits us with even hotter daytime temperatures, those tortoises are going to be seeking shelter from the sun just like us. A car parked in the desert where there isn't normally shade is an inviting spot for a threatened native species. And even if you've only left the car for a few minutes, there could still be a tortoise under your tires when you return. That's why you should always check under your car when leaving a wilderness area or even somewhere as common as a dirt road. I saw my first Mojave tortoise in the wild out on the mesa when I randomly pulled over on a dirt road to get out and stretch. Not 40 feet from my car was a slow and steady gentleman who blended in so well with his surroundings that if my passenger hadn't seen him, I wouldn't have either. If you do check under your car and see a tort chilling, say hello and make sure the tortoise can see you and you don't startle them. A tortoise in distress will evacuate its water supply to get away quickly, leaving them without an easy way to replenish their hydration. If you have to move the tortoise to safety, gently pick it up with both hands on the side of its shell and carry it low and parallel to the ground. Find a safe spot with shade to stash the little fellow, like a creosote bush, and keep your eyes peeled as you drive through the desert for more signs of tortoise life. Reporting for Z107.7 News, I'm Robert Hayden.
That's our local news. Hear local news 7 times a day, 7 days a week at 7, 8, 9, noon, 4, 5, and 6. If you hear about news happening, let us know. Email us at tips@z1077fm.com. Reporting for the Morongo Basin News Leader, the award-winning Z107.7 Local News, I'm Jeff Harmetz.